After 217 rejected blind dates, you stop pretending it's bad luck. You stop doing the cute little laugh when they forget their wallet. You stop acting like it doesn't sting when they look past you like you're a Subway ad, there but not really seen. By date number 217, I didn't even wear perfume anymore. What was the point? The outcome was always the same: a polite smile, a fake excuse, then ghost town silence. That night in Midtown, I sat across from a guy who couldn't even look up from his phone. He smirked like I should be grateful he showed up at all. And I remember thinking, right there, with the restaurant noise buzzing like a bad memory, this is it. This is the last time I let anyone make me feel small, because I was done begging life to choose me. And that's when I met the stranger I'd end up marrying, unaware he was a hidden CEO. Quick thing, if you're into real New York stories that start rough but end with the kind of comeback that hits you in the chest, hit subscribe. New story drops are coming, and you don't want to miss the next one. New York has a special talent for making you feel invisible in a crowd of 8 million, like you can be standing under neon lights in Times Square and still feel like nobody's looking at you. They're looking through you. By the time I hit 217 rejected blind dates, I was basically a professional at that feeling. My friend Danny used to joke that my love life was like the MTA, delayed, confusing, and somehow always worse when you're already running late. I'd laugh, because that's what you do when your insides feel like they're folding in on themselves. You crack a joke, you keep it moving. Okay, last one, Danny said that afternoon, shoving her phone in my face like she was presenting evidence in a trial. His name is Mark, finance, lives in Hell's Kitchen. Danny approved. Danny approved? I repeated, deadpan. Yeah, I stalked his LinkedIn, his Insta, and I checked if he's got any weird tweets from 2014. Clean, he's normal. Normal. That word used to sound safe. After 217, it sounded like a trap. I almost canceled. I swear I did. I stood in my tiny apartment in Queens, rent high enough to make you question your life choices, staring at my closet like the clothes were going to give me a sign, like one dress would whisper, "Pick me and you won't get humiliated tonight." But I went anyway, because hope is a stubborn thing. Even when you try to starve it, it finds snacks. I took the E-train into Manhattan, squeezed between a guy blasting music like we all signed up for his playlist, and a woman eating chips like she was angry at the bag. Classic. I watched my reflection in the subway window, tired eyes, hair too flat, that "I'm fine" face I'd mastered. The restaurant was one of those cute places near Bryant Park. Dim lighting, overpriced pasta, tables so close you could hear strangers whisper fight. I got there early, because being late feels like giving someone permission to disrespect you. Mark walked in 10 minutes late. Not like, "oh my bad, train issues" late, just late, like my time didn't matter, like I should be grateful he showed up. He didn't smile when he saw me. He looked me up and down like he was scanning a menu he didn't like. "Hey," he said, sliding into the seat, phone already in his hand. Traffic. It was February cold outside, wind that slaps you awake, but my cheeks still burned, that old familiar heat of embarrassment, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. I gave him my best New York polite, which is basically, "I'm not gonna make a scene, but don't try me." "Cool," I said. "So, how was your day?" He shrugged, eyes glued to his screen. "Busy, you know how it is." No, actually, I didn't. Not like that, but I nodded anyway. The waiter came over. Mark didn't even look up when the guy asked if we wanted drinks. "I'll take a whiskey," Mark said. I ordered water, not because I didn't want a drink, because I didn't want to spend money trying to numb a night that was already going nowhere. He finally put his phone down for half a second and asked, "So what do you do again?" I told him, "Marketing, freelance now, because my last office job laid me off like I was a broken chair." I didn't overshare, I didn't trauma dump, I kept it light. Mark nodded like he was pretending to listen, then smirked. "Marketing," he repeated, like the word tasted funny, so like ads? It's more than ads, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He leaned back. I'm just saying, it's not exactly important. There it was, the punch, the little casual cruelty that always showed up, like a bad pattern I couldn't shake. Date 47 called my job cute. Date 103 asked if I was still figuring my life out. Date 188 told me he wanted someone more polished. I swallowed hard and forced a tiny laugh like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. The waiter set down bread. Mark grabbed a piece without asking and kept talking about himself. Hedge funds, networking events, his gym routine, this crazy deal he was working on. Every sentence was I, me, my, like I was just a chair he rented for the evening. Halfway through the meal, he excused himself to take a call. He didn't come back for 10 minutes. I sat there alone, staring at the candle, listening to the couple next to me giggle like they were in a movie. My throat tightened, and I hated myself for it. Hated that my body still reacted like I was a kid getting picked last in gym class. I checked my phone. A message from Danny popped up. "How's it going?" I typed fine, then erased it, then typed he's whatever, then erased that too. Because what do you even say after 2:17? Mark finally returned, slid into his seat like nothing happened, and signaled the waiter for the check without asking if I wanted dessert, without asking if I was okay, without asking anything that sounded like he cared I existed. When the bill came, he stared at it for a second, then pushed it slightly toward me. Not all the way, just enough. That tiny motion said everything. My stomach dropped. I'd seen this move before. The let's see what she does move, the test, like I'm auditioning for basic respect. I looked at the total. It wasn't insane, but it wasn't small. I could pay it. That wasn't the point. The point was the way he watched my face like he was waiting for me to flinch. I slowly reached into my bag and pulled out my card. And in that exact second, right as the shame hit my chest like a subway door closing too fast, Mark's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and for the first time all night, his expression changed. Not smug, not bored. Worried. He stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. He said, voice tight, "I gotta go." "Go?" I blinked. "We're literally..." "Yeah, sorry. Emergency." He grabbed his coat, already backing away. "Take care, okay?" Then he was gone, just like that. No explanation. No, let me at least cover my half. No decency. I sat there frozen, holding my card, heat rushing to my face, eyes stinging, trying not to cry in a crowded restaurant like I was the cliché everybody ignores. The waiter came back, polite smile flickering when he realized I was alone. "Everything okay?" he asked softly. I forced a nod and swallowed the lump in my throat. "Yeah," I lied. "All good." But inside, something cracked because I wasn't even surprised anymore, and that's the part that scared me. I walked out into Midtown cold, wind cutting through my coat, and I told myself out loud, like a promise you make when you've got nothing else left, that was the last one. I didn't know what last meant yet. I just knew I was done being the girl people practice disrespect on. And across the street, under the glow of a bank sign and the blur of taxis, a black SUV idled at the curb, engine running, while a man inside watched the restaurant doors like he was waiting for someone. Waiting for me. I wish I could tell you I walked out of that Midtown restaurant with my chin up, like some tough New York girl in a movie. But the truth? I walked 2 blocks before my body betrayed me. Not sobbing, not falling apart in public. New Yorkers don't do that unless the Knicks lose in overtime. It was quieter than that. My throat tight, eyes hot, breathing shallow like the city air had turned to sandpaper. I ducked into a bodega on 42nd, pretended I needed gum, and stood by the fridge doors until my face stopped doing that thing where it looks like you're about to cry. The cashier didn't even glance up. That's the weird comfort of this city. You can be breaking in half and still be anonymous. Nobody asks questions. Nobody makes it a whole thing. My phone buzzed again. "Danny? Question mark? Question mark? Hello? Where are you? Did he pay?" I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. I could have told her the funny version. He dipped like a fare evader. I could have made it a joke, but something in me was tired of being entertaining about my own pain. So I typed the truth. Me. He left. I paid. Again. 3 dots appeared immediately. "What? Again? I'm calling you." I didn't pick up, not because I didn't love Danny. I did. She was ride or die in the way only a New York best friend can be. She'll hype you up, roast you, and show up at your job if somebody messes with you. But I couldn't do the comfort talk. Not tonight. I couldn't listen to, "You're amazing," while my brain whispered, "If I'm so amazing, why does this keep happening?" I walked outside and let the cold smack my cheeks. Yellow cabs hissed by. People moved fast like the sidewalk was a conveyor belt and anyone who slowed down would get swallowed. And that's when my mind did the thing it always did after a rejection. It ran the tape. Every date, every not feeling it, every you're sweet but, every you deserve better. 217 is a number you feel in your bones. It's not just rejections, it's receipts. It's subway rides where you rehearse small talk. It's the extra 5 minutes in the bathroom fixing your hair like it could change your fate. It's pretending you didn't notice the way his face shifted the moment he saw you in person. That last part? Yeah, that part is real. People don't say it out loud because it's rude, but I've lived it enough times to know the pattern. There's a look, half disappointment, half calculation, like they're doing the math of how fast they can escape without looking like the bad guy. And the wild part? It wasn't always about looks. I know what you're thinking. Maybe she's not pretty. I've heard that whisper, too, the one that slides into your head when you're alone at 2 a.m. But I'm not ugly. I'm not. I'm a normal New York woman. I have good days and tired days. I can pull off a dress when I feel like it. I can also wear a hoodie and still turn heads on the train if the lighting hits right. No, it was something else. Something in the way I walked into rooms like I was asking permission to exist. Because somewhere along the line, after so many almosts and maybes, I started shrinking myself without noticing, laughing too quickly, apologizing for tiny things, offering to split the bill before anyone asked, like I was trying to buy safety with my wallet. That's what rejection does. It doesn't just hurt once, it trains you. I crossed to Bryant Park, watched people skate under the lights like they didn't have a single bad memory. Couples holding hot chocolate, tourists taking selfies, a little kid tugging his mom's sleeve, begging for a pretzel. And I felt this sharp, stupid jealousy, like, must be nice to believe you're allowed to be happy. A notification popped up from a dating app I forgot I still had. New match. I laughed, a short, bitter sound, like the city itself was playing games with me. I opened it anyway. Curiosity is another stubborn thing. The profile photo loaded. A guy with an easy smile, plain hoodie, no flashy watch, no I'm rich energy. Name, Ethan. Bio, I'm not great at this. I'm better in real life. I stared at it longer than I meant to. It was so unpolished. Honest, maybe. Or maybe I was so used to men selling themselves that real looked suspicious. Danny called again. This time I answered. Tell me you didn't cry in public, she demanded, voice loud enough to wake Staten Island. I didn't, I said. I'm fine. No, you're not. Where are you? Bryant Park. I'm coming, she said, like it was decided by the mayor. Danny, don't Danny me. You paid again? Yeah. Girl, that's not a blind date. That's a mugging with appetizers. I snorted, and it almost turned into a real laugh. Almost. She showed up 10 minutes later, cheeks pink from the cold, scarf half-wrapped, eyes sharp like she was ready to fight the entire borough of Manhattan. She took one look at my face and softened. Okay, she said quietly, talk to me. So I did. Not all the details, just the parts that mattered. He didn't even pretend, like I was just there, like I was background. Danny's jaw tightened. That says everything about him. Yeah, I said, staring at the skating rink, but it also says something about me, because I keep ending up here. She didn't interrupt. That's how I knew she was serious. I exhaled. I think there's a reason, and nobody's telling me. Danny's eyes flicked to mine. What do you mean? I swallowed. The words tasted ugly. I think people can sense it, that I don't feel chosen, so they don't choose me. For a second, the city noise got distant, like my confession turned the volume down on everything else. Danny looked at me like she wanted to argue, and then she didn't. Not because she agreed, but because she recognized the truth behind it. Okay, she said slowly, then we do something different. What, therapy? I tried to joke. No, she said, dead serious. We stop handing strangers the power to decide your worth. I blinked. How? She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone like she was about to show me a map to buried treasure. My cousin's a paralegal, she said. She knows a guy who knows a guy, don't ask, but there's this arrangement thing. People do it, like marriage on paper. Not scammy, just two adults helping each other. I stared at her. You're insane. Am I? She shot back. Because dating is clearly not working. You keep getting rejected, used, tested. What if you took control? What if you stopped auditioning and made your own terms? My heart thumped, not because it sounded romantic, because it sounded like relief. A way out of the loop, a way to stop bleeding in public. "Danny," I whispered, half laughing, half terrified, "you want me to marry a stranger." She shrugged. "You already meet strangers for dinner. At least this way you get something back." I looked down at my phone, at that new match notification, at Ethan's plain hoodie smile, and I felt something shift. Not hope, not yet, more like a quiet, dangerous thought. What if the only way to find love is to stop chasing it? I put my phone in my pocket. "Okay," I said, voice shaking. "Tell me how it works." Danny's grin flashed, quick, fierce, and just like that, the 217th rejection stopped being the end of my story and became the moment I finally took the pen back. The thing nobody tells you about New York is how fast life keeps moving even when you're falling apart. The next morning, I still had to wake up, answer emails, pretend my bank account wasn't doing that scary little low balance dance, and ride the subway with strangers who looked like they'd survived 3 wars before breakfast. The city doesn't pause for heartbreak. It barely pauses for funerals. Danny texted me at 8:06 a.m. "Danny, coffee, noon, Chelsea, we're doing this. No good morning, no how are you feeling, just action." That's Danny. She treats your pain like a fire alarm. Less talking, more movement. By noon, I was sitting in a corner spot of a crowded cafe off 7th Ave, trying to look like I belonged there. Chelsea was full of people in long coats and expensive shoes, walking fast like they were late to something important. I ordered a black coffee because I didn't want sugar, didn't want comfort, didn't want anything that felt like I was being gentle with myself. Danny arrived with her scarf half off and that look in her eyes that meant she'd already decided my future. She slid into the chair across from me, pulled out her phone, and said, "Okay, don't freak out." "I'm already freaked out," I said. "Perfect, so listen," she leaned in. "My cousin's friend works with a community legal clinic. They deal with, like, real stuff, immigration, housing, marriage paperwork, and before you judge me, yes, people do arrangements. Not shady, not reality TV, just life." I stared at my coffee like it had answers. "What kind of arrangement?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Two people who are tired," Danny said simply. "Two people who want stability. Sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's practical, sometimes it's just loneliness." The word hit me in the chest. Loneliness. Not the dramatic kind, the quiet kind you carry while you're surrounded by people, the kind that sits next to you on the subway when no one else does, the kind that makes you start talking to yourself in your apartment just to hear a voice. Danny watched my face carefully, like she was waiting to see if I'd run. "So what?" I said, forcing a laugh. "I just marry some random guy and call it a day?" "Not random," she corrected. "Vetted. Background check, paperwork, terms, boundaries. Like adult stuff." I didn't laugh this time, because she wasn't wrong. A part of me, an embarrassing, honest part, felt relief just hearing the words terms and boundaries. Dating had always felt like walking into a room where the rules were invisible and only everyone else had the handbook. Why would a guy agree to that? What's in it for him? Danny's lips pressed together. People have reasons. That made my stomach twist. I didn't want to be someone's reason. I didn't want to be a solution to a problem I didn't understand. But then I thought about Mark pushing the bill toward me like I was a test. I thought about 217 nights of getting ready like I was preparing for judgment. I thought about the way I'd started expecting disrespect like it was weather. And I asked the question I'd been avoiding for years. "What if I'm the problem?" I said quietly. Danny's eyes narrowed. "Stop." "I'm serious," I insisted. "What if there's something about me that makes people think they can treat me like I'm disposable?" Danny leaned forward until her voice dropped. "Listen to me. You're not disposable," she said. "But you've been acting like you are." The words made my throat tighten. Because she was right. I'd been trying to earn love like it was a job interview. Smiling too much, saying yes too fast, paying for dings to prove I wasn't high maintenance, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, letting men be halfway interested and calling it a connection. Danny tapped the table twice, sharp. "This arrangement thing," she continued, "it's not romantic, it's not a fantasy, but it's controlled. It's you choosing the terms." I stared at her. "And what if I don't want controlled?" I whispered. "What if I want real?" Danny softened just a little. Baby, you do want real. That's the point. But right now, real has been treating you like trash, so maybe you take a detour. Maybe you stop bleeding long enough to remember who you are. I sat back, heart pounding. Outside the cafe window, a group of people laughed loudly on the sidewalk, like life was easy, like love didn't cost them anything. I don't even know what I'd say, I admitted. Like, hi, I'm a woman with a record of 217 rejections. Want to marry me? Danny snorted. First of all, we're not leading with that. I'm not joking, I said, voice shaky. I'm tired. I don't have energy for another maybe. I don't have energy to be evaluated. Danny's eyes locked on mine. Then don't, she said. Stop auditioning. I took a slow breath. Something in me, the part that still wanted a miracle, whispered, this is crazy. But a deeper part, the part that had been quietly dying for years, whispered back, crazy is doing the same thing 217 times and expecting it to finally feel different. Danny slid her phone across the table. On the screen was a simple message thread and a first name, Ethan. No last name, no flashy bio, just Ethan. Available to meet, discreet, serious. My stomach flipped. Wait, I said, pointing. That Ethan? Danny blinked. What do you mean? I hesitated. I got a match last night. His name was Ethan. Hoodie. I'm better in real life. Danny's eyebrows shot up. Shut up! Are you kidding? I'm not, I said. It's probably not the same guy. Ethan is like the Mike of 2025. Danny leaned back, thinking. Then she shrugged. Could be, but either way, this Ethan is real. He's been vetted through my cousin's friend. He's not a creep. My hands felt clammy. I hated that my body was reacting. Like this decision, this cold, practical decision, still had the power to scare me. When? I asked, barely audible. Danny's grin was immediate. Tonight. Tonight? I repeated, almost choking. Danny, I'm wearing sneakers. Good, wear sneakers. This isn't a date. This is a negotiation. A negotiation. That word felt wrong and right at the same time. I stared down at Ethan's name on the screen, and I realized something that made my chest ache. I wasn't saying yes because I believed in love. I was saying yes because I didn't believe in it anymore, and I needed a way to stop hurting. I looked up at Danny. Okay, I said, voice trembling. I'll meet him. Danny's face softened, like she understood exactly how big that was. Good, she said quietly. And this time, you don't shrink. You hear me? You walk in like you belong. I nodded. But inside, a new fear rose, sharp, unexpected. What if I walk in like I belong and he still doesn't choose me? Danny stood, grabbed her coffee, and said the last thing before she left. Just remember, she said, the worst thing that ever happened to you brought you here. Then she walked out into Chelsea like she owned the sidewalk. I sat there staring at Ethan's name, and for the first time in a long time, my sadness didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a door. That evening, I stood in front of my mirror in Queens, doing the thing I always do before something that could wreck me, overthinking my face. Not in a cute, which lipstick is more fun way, in a tired, how do I look less rejectable way. I hated myself for it, hated that after everything I'd promised in Midtown, after the cold air, after the last time, I was still here, adjusting my hair like it could protect my heart. I grabbed my coat, checked my phone, and saw Danny's last text. Danny, don't be nice, be clear. I laughed once, short. Danny thought clarity was a weapon. She wasn't wrong. The meeting spot wasn't some romantic candlelit restaurant, thank God. Danny had set it up at a quiet lounge near Madison Square Park, one of those places that plays music low enough for actual conversation and charges enough for drinks that you can tell who's there to show off. I got there early. Of course I did. My anxiety is punctual. The host led me to a small table near the back, away from the bar. The lighting was soft, forgiving. I ordered water because I wanted my mind sharp. No numbing tonight, no pretending. I watched the door like I was waiting for a storm. At exactly 7:03, a man walked in. He wasn't loud. He didn't scan the room like he owned it. He didn't do the whole I'm here performance. He just stepped inside, shook the cold off his coat, and looked around calmly, like someone who didn't need to impress anyone in this city. He wore dark jeans and a plain black jacket, nothing designer screaming for attention, no flashy watch, no finance bro uniform, just clean, simple, New York practical. His eyes found mine, and he paused for half a second, like he was making sure I was real. Then he walked over. "Hey," he said, voice low and steady. "Yeah?" I said. "I'm me." He smiled, barely, like he didn't want to assume he was allowed to. "I'm Ethan," he said, and sat down slowly, like he was giving me space to change my mind. I noticed something immediately. He didn't look me up and down. He looked at my face, not evaluating, not scanning, just seeing. That alone made my chest tighten, like my body didn't know what to do with a moment that wasn't a test. "So," I said, forcing myself to breathe, "Danny told me you understand what this is." Ethan nodded once. "Yeah." No dramatic pause, no flirty grin, just, "Yeah." I waited for the follow-up questions, the ones men always ask when they want to locate your weaknesses. Why are you doing this? What happened to you? Are you crazy? But he didn't ask. He just said, "Before anything else, do you feel safe being here?" The question hit me so hard I almost laughed. Safe. Nobody ever asked me that on a date. Nobody. I blinked. "Yeah, I think so." He nodded. "Okay, if at any point you don't, you can leave. No explanation needed." My throat tightened. I stared at him, trying to figure out what his angle was. Because New York teaches you fast. People don't do kindness for free. And yet, here it was. The bartender came over. Ethan ordered a seltzer with lime. No alcohol, no performance. He wasn't here to charm the room. I swallowed. "So, what do you want?" Ethan's eyes didn't flinch. "Stability," he said simply. That word again. Stability. It sounded like a warm apartment in winter, like groceries without checking your account first, like peace. "And you?" he asked. I hesitated. I could have lied. I could have said something polished, but I was tired of being polished. "I want to stop feeling like I'm failing," I admitted. "I want quiet. I want someone who doesn't treat me like an option." Ethan listened like he'd been in the same place, like he understood in a way people usually pretend to. "Okay," he said, "we can talk terms." Terms. There it was again, the word that made this feel more like survival than romance. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a simple folder, thin and neat. "I'm not trying to scare you," he said, sliding it toward me. "It's just, I don't like chaos. I like clarity." I opened it carefully. Inside was a one-page outline. Basic stuff. Boundaries, financial expectations, living arrangements, privacy. My eyes caught on one line. "Mutual respect is non-negotiable." I stared at it too long. Ethan noticed. "That one matters," he said quietly. I swallowed hard. "Yeah."
He didn't ask why I reacted. He didn't press. He didn't poke at the bruise. He just waited. Outside the window, I could see the city moving. Yellow taxis, pedestrians, that constant Manhattan rhythm like a heartbeat. Inside, for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to perform for a man to stay. I cleared my throat. "So what? This would be legal?" "Yes," he said. "Legal. Clear. We'd meet a lawyer. Paperwork. Nothing hidden." The word hidden made my stomach twist. I didn't know why. "What about feelings?" I asked, almost embarrassed. Ethan's gaze softened a fraction. "We don't force them," he said. "We don't fake them either." I nodded, staring down at the paper. "You're not going to ask me why I'm doing this?" I blurted, because the silence was getting to me. Ethan looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, "I don't need your backstory to respect you." My eyes stung. It was so simple, so normal, so devastating. Because that was all I'd wanted from all those dates. Not fireworks, not some corny rom-com speech, just respect. I blinked fast and sat back, trying not to fall apart in a lounge like some after-school special. Ethan leaned forward slightly. "Can I ask you one thing?" he said. My heart jumped. "Yeah," he paused, careful. "What would make you feel protected?" he asked. "Not controlled, protected." I stared at him. My mouth opened, but no words came out. Protected? Nobody had ever asked me that either. I thought of Mark, of the bill, of the way he watched me flinch, of all the men who treated me like a convenience, and I realized something terrifying. I didn't even know what protection looked like anymore. "I don't know," I whispered. Ethan nodded like that was an acceptable answer. "Then we start there," he said. We sat in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that didn't feel like punishment, more like room. I looked at him again, really looked. His hands were calm, his posture relaxed, his eyes steady. And then I noticed it, a small scar near his knuckle, like he'd worked with his hands at some point. Not a pampered life scar, a real one. My brain tried to categorize him. Rich, poor, soft, dangerous, good, bad.
But Ethan didn't fit the boxes I'd built to survive dating in this city. He wasn't charming, he wasn't arrogant, he wasn't trying to win, he was just present. And that scared me more than any rejection ever did, because if he was real, if this was real, then I couldn't hide behind cynicism anymore. Ethan pushed the paper slightly closer to me. No pressure, he said. You can walk away. I stared at the line again. Mutual respect is non-negotiable. My hands trembled as I reached for the pen Danny had shoved into my bag, just in case. I signed my name at the bottom of the page, just a preliminary agreement, not the marriage paperwork. A step, a decision. Ethan watched me sign, expression unreadable. When I finished, he nodded once, like we just made something official. Okay, we'll do this the right way. I set the pen down and exhaled. And in that moment, I realized something. I'd spent years trying to be chosen, but tonight, maybe for the first time, I was choosing myself. Ethan stood, pulled on his jacket, and said, I'll text you tomorrow with the lawyer details. Then he hesitated, like he was deciding whether to cross a line. I'm glad you came, he said. It wasn't flirty, it wasn't dramatic, it was real. He walked out into the cold, disappearing into Manhattan like he'd never been there at all. I sat alone at the table, staring at my signature on the paper, heart pounding like I'd just jumped off something high. And my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. You did the right thing. Don't let fear ruin it. My blood went cold, because I hadn't told anyone where I was tonight.
If you've ever signed something that could change your life, you know the feeling. Your hand moves, but your brain is 10 steps behind, screaming questions you don't have answers for yet. That's how it felt walking into the law office on East 38th Street 3 days later, like my body had already committed and my heart was still trying to catch up. The building was nothing special. Beige walls, elevator that smelled faintly like burnt coffee, a receptionist who looked like she'd seen every version of human panic and didn't judge anymore. Ethan was already there when I arrived, standing by the window. Same calm energy, same simple coat. He turned when he saw me. Hey, he said. Hey, I replied, suddenly very aware of my hands. I shoved them into my pockets so they wouldn't shake. The lawyer, Marissa, mid-40s, sharp eyes, no nonsense, walked us into her office and shut the door. Let's be clear, she said, folding her hands on the desk. This is legal, this is consensual, and this only works if both of you are honest. Ethan nodded once. I nodded too, even though honesty felt dangerous. Marissa went through the paperwork line by line. Living arrangements, finances, privacy, exit clauses, everything had an option. Nothing was forced. I kept waiting for Ethan to add something possessive, controlling, something that would prove this was too good to be true. But he didn't. When Marissa asked about finances, Ethan spoke calmly. I'll handle rent and household expenses, he said. She shouldn't feel trapped by money. I turned to him, startled. Ethan? It's not leverage, he said quietly. It's balance. Marissa raised an eyebrow like she'd heard every excuse in the book, and still she nodded. When the conversation turned to emotional boundaries, my chest tightened. We don't owe each other romance, Ethan said. We owe each other respect. There it was again. Respect. Not love, not passion, not fairy tales, just dignity. And somehow that felt safer than every promise I'd ever been given. 2 hours later, my name was on a marriage certificate. No white dress, no family, no dramatic kiss. Just ink, signatures, and a quiet moment where Marissa smiled and said, You're officially married. Married. The word didn't land like fireworks. It landed like weight shifting, like something clicking into place that had been loose for a long time. Outside, the city went on like nothing had happened. A couple argued by a food cart, someone laughed too loud on the sidewalk, a siren wailed in the distance. Ethan stepped beside me on the courthouse steps. You okay? He asked. I nodded, then shook my head, then laughed, breathless. I don't know, I admitted. Ask me again in like a week. He smiled slightly. Fair. We walked a block in silence before he spoke again. The apartment is in Brooklyn, he said. Fort Greene, 2 bedrooms, if that works. Brooklyn, not flashy, real, lived in. That works, I said. The apartment was clean, warm, and normal. Hardwood floors, big windows, a kitchen that smelled faintly like lemon cleaner. Nothing screamed money. Nothing screamed temporary either. This is your room, Ethan said, opening one door. No expectations. I dropped my bag and exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for years. That night, we ate takeout at opposite ends of the couch, watching some terrible reality show neither of us cared about. No awkward touching, no forced conversation. At one point, Ethan glanced over. You don't have to perform here, he said, just so you know. My throat tightened.
I know, I said. I'm just not used to that. He nodded like he understood exactly what that meant. When I went to bed, I lay staring at the ceiling, listening to the city outside, sirens, laughter, life. I waited for regret. It didn't come. What came instead was something quieter, relief. Not because I was married, but because for the first time in years, nobody was evaluating me. Nobody was deciding if I was worth staying for. I already had a place, and somehow that changed everything. The first week of being married on paper was weird in the most New York way. Not romantic weird, not sitcom weird, more like you're living with a stranger who respects you so much it makes you suspicious. Like when someone holds the door for you and you automatically check your pockets because your brain's like, what's the catch? Ethan didn't cross lines. He didn't hover. He didn't ask nosy questions. He didn't do that thing some men do where they act like helping is a favor you have to repay with your body. He just existed in the apartment with this steady energy that felt almost unnatural for Manhattan-adjacent life. The first morning I woke up early out of habit, old survival habit. Before layoffs, before freelance chaos, I used to commute into the city like clockwork. My body still ran on that schedule even when my life didn't. I padded into the kitchen, half asleep, and found a mug on the counter. Not just any mug, my mug, the chipped white one I'd bought years ago from a street fair in Astoria, with a crooked little NYC printed on it. It was dumb and imperfect, and mine. Next to it was a sticky note, neat handwriting, coffee strong, like you asked, E. I froze. Because I hadn't asked, not out loud. The night before, I'd made a passing comment, barely a comment, about how cafe coffee always tastes like regret, and I missed my old strong brew. I said it without thinking, like you say things when you assume nobody's listening. But he listened, and then he did something about it. No big speech, no look how thoughtful I am, just a note. My throat tightened in a way that annoyed me. Why was my body reacting to a sticky note like it was a love letter? I poured the coffee, took a sip, and almost laughed because it was exactly right. Strong enough to wake the dead, the way New Yorkers pretend they like it, like courage in liquid form. When Ethan walked in, hair slightly messy, hoodie on, he nodded at me like we were roommates, not strangers pretending to be spouses. You slept okay? He asked. Yeah, thanks for the coffee. He shrugged like it was nothing. No problem. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't, because over the next few days, he kept doing small things that made my chest feel crowded. He noticed my shoes were soaking after a rainy day and quietly put them near the radiator so they'd dry. He saw I always forgot to buy groceries until I was starving, so he started keeping basics stocked. Eggs, rice, fruit, without making it feel like charity.
He remembered I hated loud alarms and set the apartment's timer to a softer chime when he cooked. None of it was dramatic. And that's why it hits so hard. Because drama is easy to fake, attention is easy to perform, but consistency? Consistency is expensive. One evening, I came home from a freelance meeting in the city, one of those we love your energy meetings that pays you in compliments instead of money. I was irritated, tired, and carrying that familiar New York frustration like a heavy bag. Ethan was in the kitchen, stirring something in a pot. The apartment smelled like garlic and onions. Real food smell, not microwaved survival smell. You cook? I asked, surprised. A little, he said. You didn't eat much yesterday. My stomach flipped at how casual he made that observation. I was busy, I said, defensive without meaning to be. Ethan didn't flinch. He didn't take it personally. He didn't turn it into a fight. He just nodded. I made soup. You can have some if you want. Soup. That word made me think of childhood, of being cared for, of someone noticing you weren't okay and responding without demanding an explanation. I sat at the counter, arms crossed, trying to pretend I didn't want it. Ethan poured a bowl, slid it toward me, and went back to stirring without watching me eat like it was a test. I took one bite. It was good, really good, warm enough to unclench something inside me. I swallowed hard. Thanks, I said quietly. Ethan glanced at me. You're welcome. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was safe, like neither of us needed to fill it with performance. After dinner, we sat in the living room, TV on low. He scrolled through something on his phone. I pretended to read. But my mind kept drifting back to that unknown text from the night we met. You did the right thing. Don't let fear ruin it. I hadn't told Ethan about it. I didn't even tell Danny. Something about it felt too invasive, too creepy, like saying it out loud would make it more real. Still, it haunted me. That night, I woke up at 3:12 a.m. because the city outside had gone unusually quiet.
No sirens, no yelling, just that eerie calm that makes you feel like something's about to happen. I stared into the dark, heart thudding. From the other room, I heard Ethan's door open softly. I held my breath. His footsteps were slow, careful, not sneaky, careful, like he didn't want to startle me. He stopped in the hallway. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. I blinked, stunned. He heard you moving. Nightmares? I hesitated. The truth was, I didn't know. It wasn't a nightmare, it was fear. The kind that doesn't show you monsters, just shows you the past repeating itself. "I'm fine," I lied automatically. Ethan didn't push. He just said, "If you ever need to talk, you can. If you don't, that's fine too." Then he paused, like he was choosing his next words carefully. "But you're safe here," he added. "No one's coming in. No one's taking anything from you." My throat closed. Because he didn't just mean the apartment. He meant me. I whispered, "Okay." Then Ethan didn't linger, didn't make it weird. He went back to his room, door clicking softly shut. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling something unfamiliar settle over me. Not love, not yet, but something close. Trust. And that's when the scary thought hit me, sharp and sudden. If Ethan keeps treating me like this, what happens when I start needing him? Trust is a slow thing. It doesn't show up like a rom-com moment. It sneaks in. It shows up in little ways, like how I stopped locking my bedroom door at night without even realizing it, like how I started leaving my laptop on the coffee table without panicking, like how I began to expect Ethan to be there. And then, of course, the city reminded me that nothing stays simple. It started with a phone call. We were both in the kitchen on a Thursday evening, me reheating leftovers, him leaning against the counter, quietly reading something on his phone. The vibe was calm, domestic, almost normal. Then Ethan's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his whole posture shifted. Not panic, not fear, control, like someone had just flipped a switch in him. He didn't answer right away. He stepped toward the window, lowered his voice, and picked up. "Yeah," he said, just one word. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but in a New York apartment, you can hear your neighbor sneeze through the wall. So yeah, I heard enough. "No, not that number," Ethan said, sharper than I'd ever heard him. "Push it to Monday. If they don't like it, they can walk." Pause. Because I said so. My hands froze over the microwave buttons. Because I'd never heard Ethan sound like that. When he ended the call, he turned back to the kitchen like nothing had happened. I tried to pretend I didn't notice, but my brain was already spinning. "What was that?" I asked, casually, like I didn't care. Ethan's eyes flicked to mine. "Work," he said. "What do you do again?" I asked, keeping my voice light. He paused just a beat too long. "Consulting," he said. Consulting, the most New York non-answer on earth. People say consulting the way they say I'm busy. It's a shield. I nodded slowly. "Okay." Ethan went back to his phone. End of conversation. But the questions stayed, because Ethan didn't talk about his work, not really. And at first, I liked that. After dating men who treated their jobs like personalities, it was refreshing. Now it felt intentional. 2 days later, it got weirder. We were walking through Fort Greene Park on Saturday morning. Cold air, dogs everywhere, Brooklyn families pretending winter is cute. Ethan had a coffee in one hand, gloves on, looking like any other guy blending into the city. I was mid-sentence, telling him a story about a client who tried to pay me in exposure when a man in a clean black coat approached Ethan from the side. Not aggressively, not casually either. Respectfully. "Mr. Hale," the man said. I stopped walking. Ethan didn't. He didn't even look surprised. He just nodded once. "Morning." The man's eyes flicked to me, then back to Ethan. "We confirmed the meeting," he said quietly. "Your presence is requested." Requested? Who talks like that? Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. I said Monday. The man hesitated. "They're insisting." Ethan leaned in, voice low enough that I caught only pieces. "Tell them no," he said. "If they want a show of power, they can find another stage." The man nodded immediately, and stepped back like Ethan had just issued a final decision. "Yes, sir," he said. "Sir?" My stomach dropped. The man walked off, disappearing into the park crowd like a secret. Ethan finally turned to me, expression calm. "Sorry," he said. "Work stuff." "What the hell was that?" I blurted, New York blunt slipping out. Ethan blinked just once, like he'd forgotten normal people would react to that. "It's nothing," he said quickly. "Nothing," I stared at him. "He called you Mr. Hale and then Sir, like you're—" "Like I'm what?" Ethan asked, tone careful. I didn't finish because saying it out loud felt ridiculous. "Like you're somebody, like you're important, like you're not who you've been pretending to be in my apartment eating soup and watching trash TV." Ethan took a slow breath. "I told you I like privacy," he said. "That's privacy?" I snapped. That was power. Ethan's eyes hardened for half a second, then softened again. "Let's go home," he said quietly. The walk back to the apartment was silent, heavy. Inside, he took off his coat slowly, like he was trying not to trigger something in me, like he knew I was teetering on the edge of mistrust. I paced the living room, hands shaking. "Ethan," I said, voice tight, "are you hiding something from me?" He didn't answer immediately. He looked at me like he was deciding how much truth I could handle. Finally, he said, "I'm not hiding who I am. I'm hiding what people do when they find out." That sentence hit like a slap. "What people do?" I repeated. Ethan's jaw clenched. "They change. They want things. They stop seeing me as a person and start seeing me as an opportunity." I stared at him because I understood that in my own way. Not with money, with need, with loneliness, with rejection. People always want something. But still, you could have told me, I said, quieter now. Ethan stepped closer, careful, palms open like he wasn't trying to corner me. "I wanted you to know me first," he said, "not the rest." I swallowed hard. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, a notification. An email I hadn't opened yet from a new freelance contact in Manhattan. Subject line, brand partnership, Hale Group. I froze. Hale Group. The name hit my brain like deja vu I couldn't place. I turned the phone toward Ethan so he could see it. His face went still. Not shocked, caught. The room felt suddenly smaller. "Ethan," I whispered, barely breathing, "what is Hale Group?" Ethan's eyes locked on mine. For the first time since we met, his calm slipped. Just a crack. "Where did you get that?" he asked. "In my inbox, because apparently your name is connected to something big enough to be emailing me." Ethan didn't answer. He looked away for half a second, like he was fighting a decision. Then he looked back at me and said, low and steady, "You need to hear it from me, not from the city." My heart slammed, because I knew what that meant. The truth was coming, and something inside me, the girl with 217 rejections, was already bracing for it to hurt. When Ethan said, "You need to hear it from me, not from the city," my whole body went cold. Because New York doesn't just spread information, it weaponizes it. In this city, the moment people smell something valuable, they show up like pigeons at a dropped bagel, fast, loud, and acting like they were invited. I stood there in the living room, staring at him, waiting for the part where he finally admitted he was lying, waiting for the twist that would make me feel stupid for trusting him. But Ethan didn't rush. He didn't launch into a speech. He didn't try to charm his way out of it. He walked to the kitchen, poured himself water, took one sip, and looked at me like he was making a promise with his eyes. "I'm involved with Hale Group," he said carefully. "Involved how?" I asked. My voice sounded like it wasn't mine. Ethan exhaled. "My family owns it." The words landed heavy. Not works for, not consults for, owns. My knees felt weak. I sat on the edge of the couch because standing suddenly felt like too much. "You're what?" I whispered. Ethan didn't smile, didn't brag, didn't look proud. He looked tired. "I didn't want to tell you," he said. "Not because I wanted to trick you, because the moment people hear it, they stop being normal around me." I forced a laugh that came out bitter. "So you married me for normal?" His jaw tightened. "I married you because you were honest, because you didn't ask for anything, because you looked exhausted in a way I recognized." I blinked hard. "That's not an answer," I said. "It is," he said quietly. "It's just not the kind you're used to." I hated that he was right, because the men I dated before always had a script, compliments, promises, lines meant to pull you closer so they could leave whenever they wanted. Ethan didn't have lines, he had truth. "And you're a CEO?" I asked, the word tasting unreal. Ethan's gaze didn't move. I run operations, he admitted. I'm not the face. I don't like being the face. My chest felt tight. So you're rich? Ethan flinched slightly at the word. Money isn't the point, he said. I stared at him like he was speaking another language, because for most people, money is always the point, even when they pretend it's not. I swallowed. Then why hide it? Ethan's voice dropped. Because the second you're that guy, you stop being allowed to have anything real. People smile differently. They touch you differently. They forgive things they shouldn't. They ask for things they don't deserve. He paused. His eyes softened, and I felt something shift, like I was seeing a bruise under his calm. I didn't want you to turn into that, he added. I didn't want you to start wondering if everything I did was purchased. My throat tightened. And what if I do wonder that? I asked, barely audible. Ethan nodded once, like he'd expected the question. Then we talk about it. We don't pretend, we don't play games. Silence filled the room. Outside, a siren passed. Somewhere on the street, someone laughed loud like life was easy. Inside, my brain was spiraling. Because if Ethan was telling the truth, if he was actually connected to some huge company, then my life wasn't just stable now. It was standing on the edge of something dangerous. Not because of him, because of everyone else. I stared at my hands. So this whole marriage, was it real? Ethan walked closer, slow, like he didn't want to scare me. Real enough that I won't lie to you, he said. Real enough that I'll protect you from what comes with my world. Protect. That word again, the one that hit me like warmth and fear at the same time. I looked up. What comes with your world? Ethan's eyes held mine. People who don't take no, he said. People who like control. People who think love is leverage. My stomach dropped. Because I'd lived that, just in smaller ways. He was quiet for a moment, then said, softer, I'm sorry. The apology wasn't dramatic. It wasn't begging. It was human. And I hated myself for how much I wanted to believe him. That night, I barely slept. Not because I was scared of Ethan, because I was scared of what knowing the truth would do to me. The next morning, I was still in a fog when someone buzzed the intercom downstairs. Ethan answered it, voice calm. Yeah. Pause. He looked at me. I'll handle it, he said quietly. I sat up. Handle what? Ethan didn't answer. He walked to the door, checked the peephole, then opened it. 2 men in suits stood in the hallway like they belonged there. One of them smiled at me, too smooth, too practiced. Mrs. Hale, he said. My skin crawled at the title. We're here on behalf of the board, the man continued, stepping forward slightly. There are concerns. Ethan's voice cut through the air like a blade. She's not part of your concerns, he said. The man's smile didn't fade. That's what made it scary. With respect, he said, still looking at me, she is now. Ethan moved, one step, putting his body between me and them without even thinking. Protecting, not controlling, not showing off, just instinct. And in that exact moment, watching Ethan stand there, calm but unmovable like a wall, I felt something inside me break open. Not fear, not doubt, something warm, dangerous, stupid. Love. Because nobody had ever done that for me before, not without asking for something back. The suited man's eyes narrowed. This isn't personal, he said. Ethan's gaze didn't change. It becomes personal when you bring it to my door, he said. The men hesitated, like Ethan had more power than they expected. Then the first one nodded stiffly. We'll be in touch. They walked away. Ethan closed the door, locked it, and leaned his forehead against it for a second, like the calm cost him something. I sat there frozen. He turned to me. You okay? He asked softly. I stared at him, my heart pounding so hard it almost hurt, and I realized the cruelest part of all. I didn't fall for him because he was powerful. I fell for him because when the world tried to step on me again, he didn't let it. And now I was terrified, because if I loved him, I could lose him. After those men left, the apartment didn't feel the same. Nothing was physically different. Same couch, same kitchen, same Fort Greene street noise filtering through the windows. But the air had weight now, like the truth had moved in and was paying rent. Ethan tried to act normal. That was his instinct. Control the damage, stabilize the room, keep it quiet. He made coffee. He asked if I wanted breakfast. He turned on the TV like the city hadn't just knocked on our door and called me Mrs. Hale like I was a headline. But I couldn't swallow food. My stomach was doing that tight twist it does when your gut knows something your brain is trying to avoid. Who were they? I asked finally, voice low. Ethan didn't look up from the mug he was rinsing. People who think they have a say. A say in what? I pushed. Ethan set the mug down carefully. Too carefully. Me, he said. I stared at him. And now me too. He finally met my eyes. I didn't want you pulled into it. But I am, I said, sharper than I meant to, because you married me. Ethan's jaw tightened. Yes. Silence. The kind that feels like a cliff edge. I paced the living room, hands shaking, trying to keep my voice steady. Ethan, I said, you told me you wanted me to know you first, that you wanted something real. I did, he said immediately. Then why do I feel like I'm standing in the middle of somebody else's war? I snapped. Ethan stepped closer, palms open like he was trying to calm a stray cat. Because my life is messy, and I'm trying to keep you clean. I laughed, once, bitter. That's not how New York works. The city doesn't keep anybody clean. Ethan looked away for a second, then back. I'll fix it, he said. The phrase hit me wrong. Fix it. Like I was a problem to manage, like my presence was damage control. I don't want to be fixed. I want to be respected. Ethan flinched. You are. Then tell me everything, I demanded. No more privacy, no more half-truths. Ethan's eyes held mine. I thought he might say yes. Instead, he said, not like this. And something inside me, old and familiar, rose up. That sick feeling of being shut out, like I was back at a restaurant table watching a man decide my value in silence. Okay, I said, voice suddenly cold. Then I'll find out myself. Ethan's expression changed. Fast. Don't, he warned. What, you gonna stop me? I shot back, surprised at my own anger. Ethan's voice dropped. I'm trying to protect you. There it is again, I said, shaking. Protect, protect, protect. But you won't trust me with the truth. Ethan stared at me like he wanted to say something, then didn't. That was enough to break me. I grabbed my coat and left. I didn't go far, just down the block past the brownstones to a small spot Danny loved. A bar with decent fries and terrible lighting, the kind of place you go when you don't want anyone to notice your face. Danny was already there, because Danny is psychic when your life is falling apart. She took one look at me and slid a glass of water across the table. You look like you saw a ghost, she said. I saw a board, I muttered, in suits. Danny's eyes widened. No. Already? I froze. What already? Danny's face changed. Not panic, regret. Danny, I said slowly, what do you know? She looked away, then back, guilt all over her. Okay, she said, exhaling. I didn't want you to find out like this. My stomach dropped hard. Find out what? I whispered. Danny leaned in, lowering her voice. Ethan's not just involved, she said. He's the one, like the actual CEO. Not the face maybe, but the power, yeah, that's him. My chest went tight. He told me he runs operations, I said, voice trembling. Danny nodded. That's CEO level, babe. I stared at the table like it was moving. And there's more, Danny added quietly. I looked up. More? Danny hesitated. Then she said it. He didn't pick you randomly. The words turned my blood cold. What do you mean? I asked, barely breathing. Danny swallowed. There were options. People who do these arrangements, they get matched. And Ethan, he saw your profile before the meeting. He asked about you. I felt like the floor dropped. He asked about me? I repeated. Danny nodded slowly. Because he recognized you. My voice cracked. From where? Danny's eyes flicked away. From a charity event months ago. Hale Group was sponsoring something and you were there working marketing. Remember? You told me about that gig. You said some rich guy was staring like he was trying to remember you. My throat closed. I remembered because it had been one of the few times I'd been surrounded by money and didn't feel like I belonged. I remembered the room, the dresses, the champagne, the way I kept my smile tight so no one would notice my hand shaking. And I remembered a man across the room, dark hair, calm eyes, watching me like he was trying to place a memory. I'd written it off as nothing, because men like that don't notice women like me. Except, apparently, he did. I gripped the edge of the table so hard my fingers hurt. So you're telling me this wasn't an accident? Danny shook her head. Not fully. My chest burned with something sharp. Not just betrayal, humiliation. Because if Ethan chose me on purpose, then what was I to him? A project, a fantasy, a distraction? I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. Danny reached for my arm. Wait! No, I snapped. Don't touch me. People glanced over. I didn't care. Because the story in my head, the fragile little story where I finally got to be loved for no reason, was cracking apart. I stormed out into the cold, the city lights too bright, the air too sharp. My phone buzzed. Ethan. I ignored it. Then another buzz. A voicemail. I kept walking. Then another message, this time from an unknown number. Unknown. You weren't supposed to know yet. He'll say anything to keep you. My heart slammed. The same kind of text as before, the same invasive feeling. I stopped dead on the sidewalk, breath clouding in the winter air, because now it wasn't just about Ethan's secret. Someone was watching. Someone was tracking my steps. Someone wanted me afraid. And suddenly, every rejection I'd ever survived felt smaller than this, because this time the danger wasn't emotional, it was real. I turned a corner fast, scanning faces like I'd seen too many true crime shows, and in the reflection of a dark storefront window, I caught it, a figure across the street, standing too still, watching. I couldn't see their face clearly, but I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't about love anymore. This was about power, and I was standing in the middle of it.
I didn't run because New Yorkers don't run. We move, fast, purposeful, like we meant to do it. But inside, my blood was sprinting. I kept walking, not looking back, the way you do when you don't want to confirm you're being followed. I cut through a lit corner deli, pretending I needed something, letting the door chime announce me like a warning. I circled an aisle I didn't care about, grabbed a bottle of water just to have something in my hand, and watched the reflection in the cooler glass. The figure across the street wasn't visible anymore. That didn't call me. That made it worse. My phone buzzed again. Ethan. Then again. Then a text from Donnie. "Where are you? Please answer." My fingers shook so hard I almost dropped the phone. I didn't call Donnie. I didn't call the cops. My brain was doing what it always did when fear showed up, calculating what I could handle alone. Because that's what 217 rejections teaches you. You learn to be your own rescue. I stepped outside and finally answered Ethan's call, voice low. "Stop calling me," I snapped. Ethan didn't react to the tone. That scared me more. He sounded urgent. "Where are you?" he asked, focused. I hesitated. "Fort Greene," I said. Ethan's voice dropped. "Stay in the light. Go into a place with people. Don't go home." My stomach tightened. "So you know." A beat of silence. "Yes," Ethan said. "And I'm sorry." My throat burned. "Sorry for what, Ethan? For picking me? For hiding? For turning my life into this?" "No," Ethan said, voice rough. "For letting them get close to you." Them. The word hit like ice. "Who is them?" I demanded. Ethan exhaled like it cost him. "People on the board," he said. "One in particular. He thinks control is the same as loyalty." I swallowed. "And he's texting me?" Another pause. "I don't know yet," Ethan admitted, "but I'll find out." The honesty should have comforted me. Instead, it hurt, because I realized Ethan wasn't hiding to be dramatic. He was hiding because his world was dangerous. "You told me you wanted me to know you first," I whispered. "Was that true?" Ethan's voice softened, and the softness nearly broke me. "Yes," he said, "because when I saw you, you didn't look like someone trying to climb. You looked like someone trying to survive." My eyes stung. "So what, I was your charity project?" "No," Ethan said immediately, "never." "Then what was I asked, voice cracking, because I'm starting to feel like I'm just a move. Ethan's voice got low, steady, deadly calm. "You were the first person in a long time who made me want a life I couldn't buy," he said, and that terrified me. I stopped walking. The city noise blurred. "Where are you right now?" he asked again. I looked up and realized I was standing outside a coffee shop I'd been to once before. Lights on, people inside, safe. "On to Calb," I said. "Good, stay there, I'm coming." "I don't want you to," I started. "Please," he cut in, and Ethan never said please. That word, small, human, made my chest tighten. I went inside the coffee shop, sat by the window, and tried not to look like I was waiting for trouble. My hands were wrapped around a hot cup, but I couldn't feel the heat. 10 minutes later, a black SUV stopped outside. Not flashy, just quiet, expensive in that invisible way. Ethan got out. He didn't rush in like a hero. He moved like a man who'd already decided what he'd do if someone tried to touch me. He walked into the cafe, eyes scanning the room, then landed on me. Relief flashed across his face fast, uncontrolled. Then he sat across from me like he'd been holding his breath the entire drive. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No," I whispered. Ethan's jaw clenched. "Good."
I stared at him, my anger boiling up again because fear always turns into anger when you don't know where to put it. Danny told me, I said. Ethan didn't blink. Okay. She told me you recognized me, that you asked about me. Ethan nodded slowly. Yes. And you didn't think I deserved to know that, I snapped. You let me believe it was random. Ethan's eyes stayed on mine, steady. I didn't want you to feel chosen for a reason, he said. I wanted you to feel chosen because I chose you. My throat closed. That doesn't even make sense, I whispered. It does, he said softly. You spent years feeling like love was a test you kept failing. I didn't want you to think you were being evaluated again, by me. My eyes burned. And what about the messages, I demanded. Someone's been texting me, telling me I wasn't supposed to know, watching me. Ethan's face hardened. I know, that's why I'm here. He reached into his coat and pulled out his phone, opened something, and slid it toward me. On the screen, a security camera still from outside our building. A suited man in the hallway, the same one who'd said Mrs. Hale. Ethan tapped the name beneath it. Graham Lexford, board member. He's been pushing me for months, Ethan said quietly, to marry someone approved, someone controllable, someone who'd look good on paper. My stomach twisted. And you didn't, I whispered. No, Ethan said. I chose you. My voice shook. So he's punishing you through me. Ethan's eyes flicked up. He tried.
The word tried hit different because Ethan wasn't panicking. He was prepared. Ethan leaned forward, voice low. I need you to hear me, he said. You are not a weakness. You are not leverage. You are not a pawn. I swallowed. Then why do I feel like one? Ethan's gaze softened, and I saw it. Something raw underneath his control. Because you're used to being treated like you have to earn your place, he said, and I'm telling you, you don't. Silence sat between us, thick. Then Ethan did something that made my breath catch. He reached across the table, not grabbing, not claiming, just offering his hand, palm up. If you want out, he said, voice steady, we end this, tonight. I'll sign whatever you want. I'll make sure you're safe. No questions. My chest tightened so hard it hurt, because that was the first time a man offered me freedom instead of guilt. I stared at his hand. The city outside kept moving, and my mind flashed through every rejection, every bill pushed toward me, every "you're sweet," but every night I walked home trying not to cry on the subway. And I realized something I'd never let myself believe. Those rejections weren't proof I was unlovable. They were proof I'd been offering love to the wrong people. I placed my hand in his, not because he was powerful, because he was gentle with my dignity. I don't want out, I whispered. I want truth. Ethan squeezed my hand once. Okay. Then he said the words that finally snapped the last chain inside me. He didn't fall for you because you were easy to impress, he said. I fell for you because you kept showing up, even after 217, and I don't want a life where you're not in it. My vision blurred. I blinked fast, furious at myself. Stop, I whispered. You're gonna make me cry in public like a tourist. Ethan's mouth twitched, almost a smile. New York rules, he said softly. Cry later. I laughed once through the sting in my throat. Then he got back in the car. The SUV pulled away. Ethan came back inside, sat down across from me, and exhaled like he'd been holding the whole city on his shoulders. It's handled, he said. For real? I asked, stunned. Ethan nodded. For real. I stared at him, heart pounding. What did you do? I whispered. Ethan's eyes stayed on mine. I recorded everything, he said. The calls, the pressure, the threats. I kept it because I knew one day he'd cross the line. He paused. And he did. My breath shook. I should have been terrified, but all I felt was release, like the nightmare had finally been named and dragged into the light. We sat there as the adrenaline faded, and suddenly I felt exhausted down to my bones. Ethan watched me carefully. Come home? He asked gently. Home. That word used to feel like a place I rented. Now it felt like something I might deserve. I nodded. We walked back to the apartment together, the city cold and bright around us. At the door, Ethan hesitated like he was about to step onto sacred ground. Inside, the apartment was quiet, safe. Ethan turned to me. I'm sorry you ever doubted yourself, he said, voice low, and I'm sorry the world taught you to. My throat tightened. I still do, I admitted, sometimes. Ethan nodded like that was human. Then we'll remind you, he said, as many times as it takes. I stared at him, and all the pain of those 217 nights suddenly made sense, not as punishment, but as a path. Because if any one of those men had chosen me, I would have settled for less than respect. I would have called crumbs a meal.
I stepped closer to Ethan, voice trembling. "So what now?" I asked. Ethan's gaze softened. "Now we stop pretending," he said. I swallowed. "And the arrangement?" Ethan smiled, small and real. "We can rewrite it," he said, "if you want." My chest ached. "Yeah," I whispered. "I want." Ethan reached out, cupped my face gently, like I was something fragile and valuable at the same time. And for the first time, I didn't flinch. I didn't shrink. I didn't wonder if I deserved it. Because after 217 rejections, I finally understood. The right love doesn't make you prove your worth. It reminds you you always had it.
Like this video if you felt it. Subscribe for more stories and watch the next one on your screen.